paper reports that two of the male prostitutes were given a late-night tour of the White House last year.
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers.
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Nick Bryant podcast. Today, I'll be talking with Stephen Davis. He's written a series of articles on very strange things that have gone down in Haiti. And how you doing today, Steve?
Doing great, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So again, like you were saying, my name is Steve Davis, and for the better part of about 6 years now, I've been doing independent work as an independent investigator and independent journalist, and I've been writing and researching articles under the name Survive and Heal 15. And if you just Google that term, Survive and Heal 15. My articles will come right up. I have them on a number of different platforms, but my main one that I use is on the blog on Medium. I have a Survive and Heal 15 research site on that particular site. But the main focus of my writings has been on investigating and trying to combat human trafficking and child trafficking and crimes of that nature. And during the course of me, researching these kind of crimes and trying to, understand their nature and how these kind of crimes really kind of go down in the real world, I began to notice a lot of claims and allegations and evidence, both circumstantial and direct, that the nation of Haiti in particular arguably has been having a lot of problems with human trafficking crimes for a really long time. And a lot of that goes back to, Haiti being one of the poorest countries in the world, as well as certainly being the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. You look at Haiti's history of poverty and political stability, lack of political stability. Unfortunately, those kind of factors make it a pretty big breeding ground, so to speak, for human trafficking crimes, which is what led me to do this kind of work and research into these kind of crimes in Haiti. Just again, through my course of, doing these investigations, especially when it comes to human trafficking crimes in Haiti, I wrote a couple articles in particular that I think would definitely be of interest to your viewers. And the first one we can start talking about is about a really bizarre case, child abduction case that occurred back in 2010 in Haiti, called the Laura Silsby case. And for people who aren't familiar, Laura Silsby was a supposed Christian missionary from Idaho who got into a bunch of trouble in Haiti back in 2010, right after the really horrific earthquake that occurred there that took hundreds of thousands of lives in Haiti. And what ended up happening was in just a couple of weeks after the huge earthquake hit there, Laura Silsby and a group of American evangelical missionaries got arrested along the border between Haiti and the Dominican Republic. The reason they got arrested was because Laura Silsby and the other missionaries were driving a bus containing 33 Haitian children. And they were trying to take this bus over the border of Haiti into the Dominican Republic. And as bizarre as it is, what ended up happening was that only a few days before Silsby and her co-conspirators got arrested, they had previously tried to take another group of children, this time 40 children, in a different bus across the border into the Dominican Republic, but they got turned back for lack of having proper paperwork. So as bizarre as that incident was, only a few days after that, they went back to the border, this time with another group of kids, this time 33 kids, again claiming that the kids were orphans and that they needed to take them out of Haiti into the Dominican Republic to orphanages in that country. Now, where the situation blew up and became a scandal, what ended up happening was Haitian authorities on the border were very suspicious of Silsby and the other evangelicals, because apparently they lacked the proper paperwork for the kids on the bus. So what they ended up doing was they went and checked on the actual identities of the kids on the bus. And as it turned out, even though Laura Silsby and her fellow missionaries claimed that the kids were all orphans, as it turned out, not a single one of the 33 kids on the bus were actually orphans. So they got caught in a blatant lie, and they were arrested for it on suspicion of possibly trafficking the children. And where this case got even more bizarre was shortly after Laura Silsby and the other Americans were detained in Haiti, a very strange individual by the name of Jorge Torres Puello showed up in Haiti, claiming that he was the lawyer for Laura Silsby and the other missionaries. Where this gets where this gets even crazier is that this supposed quote unquote lawyer for Laura Silsby and the other missionaries, shortly after he showed up in Haiti, claiming to be their lawyer, claimed that he was just trying to help them and the kids, this Jorge Torres Puello was himself arrested and later tried and convicted for being a human trafficker himself.
One thing about Puello is that he was wanted for human trafficking, and he went to Haiti ostensibly to represent these missionaries that were ostensibly saving these orphans. And he granted Fox an interview, which I find kind of mind-boggling. If you have warrants out for your arrest for human trafficking, why in the world would you grant Fox an interview? Why would you go to something so high profile as the Laura Silsby case? You have any ideas about that?
Yes, and I'm really glad you brought up the Fox interview. So just to give a little bit more context, he did have an interview with Fox News, and believe it or not, he had an interview with Greta Van Susteren, who I'm sure people have heard of, longtime cable news talking head. But I can get back to her and her situation just in a second. But what's significant about again, Jorge Torres Puello is after he showed up as a lawyer, again, he was picked up by authorities for being an actual human trafficker, and another very high profile and significant individual suddenly got involved in this situation, none other than Bill Clinton. Very significantly, there is an article in the Harvard Human Rights Journal by a law school professor, Shawnee King, and the name of the article is called Owning Laura Silsby's Shame. And it's a very in-depth overview of the whole Laura Silsby case. And according to the Harvard Human Rights Journal, in Professor King's own words, shortly after Silsby and these missionaries got detained, Bill Clinton himself got directly involved. And according in King's words, he quote unquote put out the fire of the trafficking scandal. And not only that, again, according to Shawnee King's words in the Harvard Human Rights Journal article, President Clinton, quote unquote, prodded the Haitian authorities to drop the charges against Laura Silsby and her co-conspirators, which is exactly what happened.
Initially, and the co-conspirators, there were 9 co-conspirators.
Yes.
And they were immediately exonerated.
Immediately. And
Laura Silsby had to spend, I believe, 3 months in jail.
At most. Initially, she was in her charges. They weren't dismissed, but her charges were massively reduced. They were reduced from kidnapping charges to just kind of like a bureaucratic charge, like organizing illegal travel without proper documentation. But she ended up serving no more than about 3 months. So essentially, the whole thing was quashed after Clinton's involvement.
And at the time, Silsby faced numerous court cases in the United States for bad debt and unpaid wages.
Yes.
November of 2009, she registered her New Life Children's Refuge charity in Boise, Idaho. And a month later, the house was repossessed for lack of payment. In the midst of her personal debt crisis, she went to Haiti. Her orphanage has been repossessed, and she has a number of people suing her because she owes the money. And then she goes to Haiti to help these orphans. That doesn't quite square with me. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, none of it really lines up. None of it really makes any sense. And especially when you factor in Torres Puello being involved and him turning out to be a human trafficker. And another really important, a couple of points to bring up. The New York Times also wrote a couple of very important articles about the Silsby case, and they also brought up a couple of important facts about Puello. And one of the things that they mentioned that makes this situation even sketchier is apparently when Jorge Puello showed up in Haiti claiming to be the lawyer for Silsby, he was accompanied by 4 bodyguards. He had his own like private retinue of bodyguards, which, and that alone was so weird that apparently the Haitian judge in that case literally was quoted in the New York Times as saying, "I've never seen this behavior from a defense attorney before. I need to get to the bottom of it." So, and not only that, according to the same New York Times article, shortly before Jorge Torres Pueblo showed up claiming to be a lawyer, another person claiming to be a different lawyer for the same group of people, for Laura Silsby and the co-conspirators, was apparently kicked out of Haiti for allegedly trying to bribe the Haitian judge to get the charges dropped against Silsby and the co-conspirators. So there are reports in the New York Times that, again, one alleged person was allegedly trying to bribe the judge to literally essentially bust them out of jail. And then, by all indications, apparently when that bribery attempt didn't work, this other fellow, Jorge Puello, shows up, and he turns out to be a human trafficker himself. And you mentioned the Fox News interview. And again, what's so bizarre about that is, again, that interview occurred very shortly after Jorge Puello showed up claiming to be the lawyer for Silsby, and very shortly before he himself got arrested for being a human trafficker. And during that bizarre little period of time, again, he snagged an interview with none other than Greta Van Susteren on Fox News back in 2010. And I have a link to the actual transcript of the interview in my article. But if you read the transcript of the article, it was only a brief on-air interview between Van Susteren and Puello, but you can very obviously tell from the tone of the interview that Greta essentially was giving him a softball interview. In the interview, Puello claimed that there was no intention of wrongdoing, that it was all just a big misunderstanding, that nobody was trying to harm the kids or do anything wrong to the kids. And Greta essentially gave him the benefit of the doubt. She didn't ask any real probing questions. She didn't address any of the reports that the kids on the bus that was being driven by Silsby and the co-conspirators, that none of the kids were actually orphans, even though they claimed that they were. And, long story short, it was arguably kind of a whitewash of an interview with this Puello that, if you were your quote unquote average Fox News viewer and you watched the interview and that was your only context, you would walk away thinking that it was just a big misunderstanding. And that actually literally the name of the interview on the Fox News website to this day says that the whole, if I could just pull it up, I think the name of it was like, it was like Laura Silsby, like trafficking scandal or a big misunderstanding, quote unquote. So again, the tone from the Fox News interview was that no wrongdoing was actually going on. But why this is so strange is as literally only 10 days after this interview was aired on Fox News between Van Susteren and Puello, the New York Times reported that authorities in El Salvador were investigating Puello for leading an international human trafficking ring that was allegedly trafficking women and children from all over the Caribbean and Latin America. So the interview, point being, the interview that Van Susteren did with Jorge Puello is incredibly suspect on so many levels. Number one being, the tone of the interview itself was that, oh, this Puello guy probably wasn't doing anything wrong. It's all a big misunderstanding. Well, guess what? As it turns out, this Puello, as of today, is now a convicted human trafficker. After he got arrested on those charges, he was extradited to the United States. He was tried and convicted in a federal court in Vermont, and he ended up spending, I believe, close to 3 years in jail on human trafficking charges in the federal prison system here. So it's just so bizarre on so many levels. And again, the other obviously huge elephant in the room is, again, the involvement of the Clintons.
Let's back up 1 second here. I want to back up to the Harvard Human Rights Journal. And you referenced it, a law professor, Shawnee King,
yes,
wrote a protracted article about the Silsby case. And he concluded that they were smuggling kids out of Haiti to be adopted. That's how they were going to make their money. And when her New Life Children Refuge was looked into, the building that was repossessed, it was found that it wasn't even a U.S. nonprofit, a 501c3, which is kind of interesting. Now, with King's conclusion, was that your conclusion that she was smuggling those kids out to be adopted and making money that way?
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm giving a cop out, but I honestly just don't know one way or the other. I don't want to go any further than what the evidence really kind of allows me to say. But what I will say is that, even just going on what the Harvard Human Rights Journal article said, in King's own words, I mean, he pretty much said that after it came out that Puello was a human trafficker, the suspicions about whether or not Silsby was trying to traffic the children into trafficking rings, quote unquote, greatly increased. So, after the Puello involvement, suspicions about this definitely increased massively. And unfortunately, we just don't really know one way or the other. I mean, all we really know are kind of the basic facts that, I've been presented in the mainstream media, albeit, sporadically. We know that the kids weren't actually orphans. We know they didn't have the proper paperwork. We know that one particular person showed up in Haiti who allegedly tried to bribe the judge to get Silsby and the co-conspirators released. We know that another person, again, this Puello, showed up claiming to be a different lawyer. And of course, he himself is an actual human trafficker. I mean, just looking at the basic facts of this really speak in and of themselves. And then, to answer your question, I mean, just going off of the basic facts, I think there's very good reason to highly suspect that Silsby was quite possibly trying to traffic the kids into some type of criminal trafficking situation. I don't know that for sure, but the evidence certainly does seem to point in that direction. I will say that much.
King concluded that she was trafficking these kids into adoption agencies, where parents who would adopt these children would pay a certain amount. That was his conclusion, but there is more ominous conclusions here. Unfortunately, it never got properly adjudicated because, as you said, Bill Clinton stepped in and stomped out the fire. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other big piece of it, I mean, obviously, when we're talking about the Clintons, you always got to talk about Bill and Hillary. They always seem to be kind of a tag team duo in this. And the other thing that's important to bring up, in addition to what Shawnee King documents about Bill Clinton's involvement, Hillary also has a direct connection to this too. The reason being is that WikiLeaks, I'm sure folks know WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. WikiLeaks released some cables about the Laura Silsby case that were very, very relevant, and I include links to the WikiLeaks cables in my article about this. One of the WikiLeaks cables that came out, there was an email from a advisor to the State Department by the name of Professor Harold Koh, who is a former dean of Yale Law School. And at the time, the email was sent back in 2010. Again, he was acting as like an advisor to the State Department. And he emailed Hillary Clinton and CC'd a couple of her top staffers at the time, including Jake Sullivan, who's the current national security advisor under Biden. And the email that was sent from Harold Koh to Hillary and her people at the State Department definitely was about Laura Silsby. The subject line was about American citizens who had been arrested in Haiti. And most of the body of the email is blacked out or redacted, but there's just one sentence at the top where Harold Koh talks about, quote unquote, legal options for dealing with American citizens, i.e. Laura Silsby and her co-conspirators who were detained in Haiti. So the significance of, you can't underestimate the significance of even just that cable, because that cable clearly shows, it provides direct evidence that Hillary and her top people at state at that time, not only were they aware of the Silsby case, but arguably they were involved in discussions about legal options for presumably getting Silsby and her conspirators released. I mean, the context of the email is somewhat limited because it's redacted, but we do know that much from the email. So again, and when just put this in a little bit of context, I mean, obviously there's all different, when you talk about like immigration issues and legality issues of American citizens, I mean, these kind of issues go on all over the world all the time. You got to ask yourself, why the interest? Why are Bill and Hillary showing up in such a conspicuous way in this one particular human trafficking scandal? Again, I can't give you a definitive answer, but when you look at this evidence, it starts to look very, very suspicious in terms of their involvement. Definitely will say.
And before we started recording this, I asked you, the House on Un-American Activities used to call witnesses and say, are you or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? And I'd like to ask you, are you or have you ever been a member of QAnon?
No, no, I'm not. Nor have I ever been, nor will I ever. To answer your congressional question,
and I've stated on this podcast before that I feel like the people from QAnon are greatly misguided, and one of the postulates of QAnon is that Donald Trump is going to save the children, and we didn't see Donald Trump saving the children. No. So neither one of us are affiliated with QAnon, although the Clintons are actually involved in this case. And although it has nothing to do with QAnon, it certainly is a very strange case where these quote unquote American missionaries were busted with 33 kids who were not orphans. And then all of a sudden, and they're going to do some time, but then a former American president comes in and quashes the entire case. And 9 of Silsby's co-conspirators are let out immediately, and she has to do 3 months. So it's a very, very strange case.
Very, and I agree with your sentiments about QAnon. And I got to say, my personal take on QAnon, really the biggest reason I've been opposed to it is QAnon seems to have all the trappings of a cult, in the sense that it tends to create this like cult of personality and lure people into this idea that like, oh, if you just find the right person or the right group out there that has the secret knowledge, then the world will be saved. And look, I mean, that's a very dangerous notion. And at the end of the day, I think it's a very disempowering thing, because, you're kind of giving away your power to some group or some entity that you believe has all the secret knowledge. And, it's just really, in my opinion, it's a recipe for disaster. And I don't know if you've been following it, but up in Canada right now, just one example of many, there's a woman up there who's deemed herself the QAnon queen. And she travels around Canada in an RV and kind of has attracted her own cult following. And I think she does stuff like, she encourages people not to pay their taxes and to, blah, blah. And it's kind of a typical kind of anti-government type cult. But the point being, I see QAnon kind of being problematic in the sense that it does encourage these kinds of cults of personality. And again, I think for people who really are committed to trying to, combat and bring about knowledge, understanding of these really heinous crimes of human trafficking and child sex trafficking, I agree with you. QAnon is an obstacle. And I think, the answer more than anything is we need honest investigative journalism, which again, a million kudos to you, Nick, for your incredible book, The Franklin Scandal, because, I think you really did a great job adhering to the principles of investigative journalism, really focusing on the key questions of who, what, when, where, and why. And I think you did a great job, using the principles to really cover the Franklin scandal of the 80s in a really great way. So thank you for that. Definitely.
Well, thank you. So that was a very bizarre case, the Silsby case.
Yes.
And about 6 years later, there was an American woman. She was actually a very much an anti-trafficking activist. And she went to Haiti and ostensibly killed herself. Her name is Monica Peterson. Tell us a little bit about Monica Peterson.
Yes. So in addition to my journalism about Greta Van Susteren and the Franklin scandal, and again the full name of that article, which you can find on my sites, it's like Greta Van Susteren, legal fixer in the Franklin scandal and Samaritan's Purse. In addition to that article, I also wrote an article about Monica Peterson, which you can also find on my blog. And the full name of the article, it's called Monica Peterson, Haiti and the Octopus of the Deep State. And so first, number one, who is Monica Peterson? Monica Peterson worked as a researcher for a really prestigious graduate program at the University of Denver called the Human Trafficking Center. And the Human Trafficking Center, again, it was an actual graduate program at the University of Denver that was in operation for over 20 years. And it specifically focused on researching and combating human trafficking crimes, both in the United States as well as all over the world. And Monica Peterson, up until very shortly before her death in Haiti, again, worked directly as a researcher for this Human Trafficking Center, as well as an assistant to the director of the Human Trafficking Center. Her boss at that time, who is a professor at the University of Denver by the name of Professor Claude D'Estri. So again, very, very significant in that it's definitely on the record that Peterson worked as an actual human trafficking researcher. So we're not talking about some conspiracy blogger or who knows what. We're talking about someone who worked for a very legitimate anti-trafficking graduate program and worked for them, again, directly as a researcher. So she was very legitimate in the anti-trafficking world. Monica Peterson officially passed away in Port-au-Prince, Haiti in November of 2016. And my article focuses on the circumstances of Peterson's death in Haiti in 2016, as well as the circumstances surrounding her time in Haiti and her activity in Haiti in the couple years before her death, primarily around 2015, 2016. And one thing that's very, very significant, and just to, give a little bit of background about her and who she was. There isn't a ton of information out there about her life, but from what we know, there was an article about her death only a month after her death in December of 2016. There was an article in the Washington Post by longtime reporter Glenn Kessler, where he reported about her death. And there also is information about her in her obituary. But those, and other than that, in some social media sites, we don't know a lot about her. But based on the information that we do know about her, we know that she was born and raised in Iowa. She's from a college town, Ames, Iowa. And she grew up in this town. And after she grew up in Iowa, she went out to Colorado and she got a bachelor's degree from a university there in Colorado in anthropology. And most significant to this story, after she graduated from a bachelor's degree, she then went on to graduate work at the University of Denver at the Human Trafficking Center. And she got a master's degree in human trafficking studies from that program. And then, as I just said, she went to work for the program directly as a researcher. And there are Facebook communications, again, from roughly about the 2014 to 2016 time period that shed some very significant light on her involvement in combating and researching human trafficking activities in Haiti. And one thing that's very important to back up and explain, as I just mentioned, there was mainstream press about her death. The Washington Post did report about her death back in 2016, but very, very significantly, and this is no exaggeration, other than Glenn Kessler's article in the Washington Post, I've literally seen no other articles about Peterson's death from anywhere in the mainstream media since then, for the better part of, over 7 years at this point, which is very, in my opinion, is very telling and very suspicious in and of itself. But where this gets even more sketchy and more suspicious is that, a major focus of my article about Monica Peterson is a very in-depth criticism of Glenn Kessler's article in the Washington Post. And even though Glenn Kessler, I guess you need to say to his credit, he does confirm some basic details about who she was and what she was doing. Most significantly, he does confirm that she was employed as a researcher for this human trafficking program up until June of 2016. And it does also confirm that she died in Haiti only 5 months later, in November of 2016. And very significantly, within his article, Kessler interviews Monica Peterson's boss at the time, again, this Professor Claude D'Estri. And according to Claude D'Estri, and again, I'm just going to find the direct quote from here just so we don't have any ambiguity about it. He basically said that, I'm going to quote directly from the Washington Post article. D'Estri said the following about Monica Peterson and her death in Haiti. Quoting from the Washington Post, D'Estri had employed Peterson until June of 2016 as a researcher and as his assistant, after which she moved to Haiti. He said she had been teaching at a private pre-kindergarten through 12 school, the Union School Haiti, mainly to support herself, and had been exploring setting up a non-governmental organization in Haiti. He said she committed suicide, but the circumstances are not clear. D'Estri said Peterson had gone to Haiti a number of times, but she was not there to research human trafficking and was not investigating the Clinton Foundation. He said she had been a brilliant research fellow working the past 2 years to produce a still unpublished article that critiqued a controversial book on the business of sex trafficking by Siddharth Kara, end of quote. So that is very significant in and of itself, because again, it's on the record in the Washington Post that Monica Peterson's boss at the time did acknowledge that she was in Haiti and did acknowledge that he employed her directly as a researcher. But what's also significant is that, again, from this quote, Peterson also denied that, Claude D'Estri also denied that Peterson was investigating human trafficking in Haiti, but at the same time, he does acknowledge that she was in Haiti, just allegedly doing something completely different, supposedly just like teaching and trying to set up an NGO. However, later on within the same article about Monica Peterson's death by Glenn Kessler refers to a number of Facebook posts concerning Peterson's death. He links to an image hosting site that contains 4 Facebook posts total. 2 of them are from a couple anti-trafficking organizations that are lamenting Peterson's death after she died. And most significantly, one of the Facebook posts that Kessler directly references in his article is a Facebook post by Monica Peterson herself. And again, quoting directly from Monica Peterson, she says the following in this Facebook post, which is from August of 2015, quoting Monica Peterson: "I'm down in Haiti for the next 3 weeks doing field work on human trafficking, i.e. all exploited labor sectors, not just sex." And then I'm just continuing to quote from her Facebook post. It seems like she's communicating with somebody else in the actual post, and then just continuing to quote her. But was wondering if anyone knew of any sex work organizations working in Haiti. I was able to find a couple social media posts from her. There's one from a number of years ago. There's a picture of her actually at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, where she was giving some type of presentation about women victims of human trafficking rings. She wrote a blog post for this human trafficking graduate program where she talks specifically in the blog post about the relationship between neoliberal free market economic policies and human trafficking. And in the post, she makes the argument that economic policies like NAFTA that have, greatly opened up and liberalized free trade. She argues that these kind of free trade policies have had a negative impact on society, both in Caribbean and Latin America, and have contributed to the destabilization of those governments, which in turn has enabled and contributed to increases in human trafficking and child sex trafficking. So again, her perspective clearly was progressive. She obviously had a pretty progressive political outlook, which directly translated into her take on human trafficking crimes. I think that's a pretty fair assessment of her views based on the information that we know about her.
So we know that she went back to Haiti with the idea that there was human trafficking going on.
Yes.
And from what I was able to discern from what you've written, it was more labor trafficking than sex trafficking.
I think it was both.
It was both. Okay.
I think it was arguably both. Well, again, I'm not trying to go any further than the information that Monica Peterson herself said. But again, just going back to that quote about her saying that she was down in Haiti doing research on field trafficking. I mean, like I was saying before, the reason that's significant is because that quote from her directly contradicts the statement from her boss. Because you got to remember, in this very same article, her boss, Professor D'Estri, said that yes, she was in Haiti, but no, she was not investigating human trafficking, and no, she wasn't investigating the Clintons. And what's significant is that her boss says that she wasn't investigating human trafficking, but she herself said that she was. So, I mean, obviously, what's up with that? But this is just the start of the suspiciousness, because from these Facebook posts, not only do we know that she was allegedly investigating human trafficking in Haiti, but there are multiple Facebook posts where she talked about the Clintons' conduct in Haiti in deeply, deeply critical terms.
From your articles, what I can tell is Monica Peterson was very interested in Caracol. It's a large industrial park in Haiti that houses a number of different manufacturers. And the exploitation there is really horrific. According to the AFL-CIO, the average Haitian worker makes about $5 a day. Tell us a little bit about Caracol.
Definitely.
And why Monica Peterson would think that there was human trafficking going on at Caracol.
Yeah, definitely. So as you were just saying, Caracol, it's called the Caracol Industrial Park. It's a very large textile sweatshop located in the northern part of Haiti, right along the northern Caribbean coast of the country. And, as I just said, the main business of this factory complex in Haiti is textile manufacturing. It's a very, very sizable factory complex. According to the latest reports I could find, it employs many thousands of workers. According to the latest reports, at least over 11,000. So it's a very, very sizable factory complex located in this community of Caracol. And Caracol itself is a small community in Haiti. It's most notable for obviously having this factory complex, but Caracol itself is a small town. It's only about 5,000 or 6,000 people. And the factory complex in Caracol geographically is located in between the Dominican Republic to the east and the city of Cap-Haïtien, the main population area of the north of Haiti, to the west. The factory complex went into operation back in 2012, pretty shortly after the really horrendous earthquake that occurred in Haiti back in 2010. And one thing right off the bat that's very significant about the Caracol Industrial Park is that undeniably, despite what they might want to say now, the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation had a very, very direct documented connection to the Caracol Park, both in terms of its operation and in terms of the industrial park getting off the ground in the first place. There's an article in Politico from back in 2015 about Caracol and the Clintons. In the article by Politico, it literally states the Clintons were, quote unquote, instrumental at nearly every step in the process of getting this industrial park off the ground. And even when the industrial park went into operation in 2012, they had like an inauguration ceremony that was attended both by Bill and Hillary Clinton. And there's literally a picture of Bill and Hillary posing with a bunch of mostly Haitian factory workers at the complex. So there's no dispute that the Clintons have a very deep personal connection to this factory complex. Very much so.
What's interesting about that is the Clintons have really tried to distance themselves from Caracol.
Yeah.
According to the Clinton Foundation's chairman, who told ABC News that the Clintons were not involved in the decision to build Caracol, nor did they recruit any of the manufacturers. However, in past interviews and assertions on its website, the foundation has embraced the Caracol project. One foundation official, Greg Milne, was quoted in the press as saying the foundation helped to promote Caracol as an investment destination and worked to attract new tenants and investments to the park. And this is kind of interesting. It kind of shows that the Clinton Foundation is financially involved. The Inter-American Developmental Bank, which provided $256 million to help build Caracol, gave a kickback of $1 million to $5 million, somewhere in there, to the Clinton Foundation. And large retailers, including Walmart and the Gap. Walmart also gave $1 to $5 million to the Clinton Foundation, and the Gap gave $100,000 to $250,000 to the Clinton Foundation. And then there was a Korean garment manufacturer that gave $50,000 to $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation. So actually, the Clintons were involved in helping set up Caracol, and they certainly got some kickbacks for the foundation.
Absolutely. That's all definitely 100% true and 100% on the record. Yeah. And it's also very notable to, as you were pointing out a little bit before. So as you were just saying, SAA Trading was the corporation that got the contract to do the actual garment manufacturing at Caracol. SAA is a South Korean-based corporation. But it operates globally, and its main business is operating textile sweatshops all over the world. They have factories in Indonesia, as well as in Haiti and other parts of Central America and Latin America. And SAA, as a corporation, is notorious for its own labor abuses and labor violations, many of which, have been documented in the mainstream press in the past. One particular notorious incident occurred about 10 years ago. SAA was operating a sweatshop in Nicaragua, and they got in some pretty serious trouble because the company got caught basically paying off a group of workers to go and physically attack another group of workers who were protesting labor rights violations that were allegedly going on at this factory complex. And apparently it got pretty violent. And again, the company literally got caught paying workers to essentially violently put down the labor strikes of another group of workers at the plant. And it got so violent that there were reports that there were physical beatings, as well as at least one instance where a protesting worker was stabbed in the face. So, I mean, point being is that this company has a rather notorious and rather nasty history in terms of putting down union organizing drives and just being, generally a pretty nasty employer in the factories that it operates in. And also very notably, when SAA got the contract to start doing the manufacturing at Caracol, America's largest labor confederation, the AFL-CIO, put out a statement criticizing that decision. And according to the AFL-CIO, again, America's largest labor union confederation, they specifically described SAA as being one of the world's major labor violators. So, I mean, this is a company that has a notorious and well-documented history of violations that goes back well before their involvement with the Clintons and Caracol. So that in and of itself raises some significant questions about why, of all companies, would the Clintons and the Clinton administration deem SAA the right fit for a company like this, for a country like this, given its own history. But where this gets even sketchier is SAA also has a history of violations and abuses at the Caracol plant itself. There have been reports from pro-worker and feminist advocacy groups that abuses have occurred against the workers at Caracol. And one thing that's important to point out, according to some of the most recent reports I could find, 90% of the workers at Caracol are female workers. So it's by far a majority female workforce. And there have been reports that, at least in certain circumstances, women workers at the plant have alleged that they were pressured into having to give sexual favors to bosses, managers at the plant in order to get jobs at the plant. And again, that has been reported in the mainstream media, including a report from ABC News a number of years ago. So, significant to this is that that particular manufacturer has a history of sexual harassment violations, in particular at this plant that they have been operating for over a decade. And all of that, is on the record in the mainstream press. So, obviously, everything surrounding, there's so many things surrounding the plant in terms of who's been involved in funding it and getting off the ground, and also in terms of who's running it, that are very suspicious and arguably, raises some very serious concerns. But where this all goes back to Monica Peterson is that, again, where this all goes back to Monica Peterson, it goes back to the Facebook post that I was mentioning before. Very significantly, in Glenn, as I was saying before, in Glenn Kessler's Washington Post article about Monica Peterson's death, he did refer to 4 of these posts. He referred to a couple posts quoting Monica Peterson directly, which I already just read from, as well as a couple posts from anti-trafficking organizations, which again were lamenting Peterson's death after she died in Haiti. But this is a really key point that I make in the article. What's really, really key here, it's not so much the Facebook post that Glenn Kessler chooses to reference in his Washington Post article. What's a million times more important, in my opinion, are the Facebook posts about Peterson's death that Glenn Kessler, in my opinion, very conspicuously decides to ignore. And there's one Facebook post in particular that arguably is kind of the smoking gun post of them all. And there's a Facebook post from January 2016 by Bella Robinson quoting Monica Peterson.
And Bella Robinson is a friend of Monica Peterson.
Yeah, and I did want to back up and explain this properly. So, yes, it's on the record that Bella and Monica knew each other. Very significantly, in Kessler's article, he acknowledges as much. He describes Bella as being quote unquote an acquaintance of Monica, but not only that. I mean, just going through these Facebook communications, you know, in certain Facebook posts, you can see Peterson and Bella talking back and forth with each other in the comments section. So there's clear evidence that Monica and Bella knew each other. They were involved in similar types of activism. So all of it's very plausible that they clearly had a pre-existing knowledge and relationship with each other at the time of these Facebook posts. So, and even more significant is that in another Facebook post, Glenn Kessler does reference a particular post, the one that I already described, where he references a post by Bella Robinson quoting Monica Peterson. Point being is that back when Monica Peterson was alive, Bella Robinson did have a documented history of reposting social media messages by Monica Peterson, which therefore means that it's, in my opinion, it's very, very plausible that Bella really was quoting Monica Peterson in these Facebook communications. So all of that being said, again, there's this January 2016 Facebook post from Bella quoting Monica Peterson, where Peterson claims that she was in Haiti doing research on human trafficking crimes in Haiti. And very, very significantly, she claims in this particular Facebook post that she herself personally visited the Caracol Industrial Park and talked to people there about working conditions in August of 2015.
But she also said that there was human trafficking.
Yeah, and that's the next point. Yeah, that's the next really important point I wanted to bring up. So yeah, number one, she makes this first point about her personally going to the Caracol complex to ask questions about working conditions. And then later on in the same Facebook post, Monica Peterson says the following. And again, I'm going to quote her directly. So quoting Monica Peterson, quoting her, but the real significance of the scandal for me, I know you feel me, Bella, is the link to contemporary slavery and trafficking. That's the direct quote from her. Again, you know, you don't have to take my word on this. Again, that's her own words in a Facebook post that can be very plausibly traced directly back to her. She again makes the claim that she personally visited the complex, talked to people there in the summer of 2015, and also specifically claims that human trafficking was happening, again, to some unknown extent, either at or near this factory complex. And again, this Facebook post was from January of 2016. Less than a year later, in November of 2016, Peterson officially died in Haiti after making those claims. And again, you know, the official cause of death was suicide, but we obviously the suspiciousness of this at this point is just really massive, in my opinion. You know, that's the only way we can describe it.
And you ventured to Haiti.
Yes.
And to look into this.
Yes.
And tell us what you learned in Haiti.
Yes. So I myself went to Haiti in December of last year. In December of 2022. And part of the reason I went there, well, I went for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons I went there was to try to help out a friend who runs an orphanage and school for children, which also actually happens to be located in the same community, the community of Caracol. But in addition to that, while I was there, I also did try to pursue this investigation further. Not to be evasive, but I unfortunately don't want to go into a ton of details, at least at this point, about that part of my reason for going there, only just because of concerns, safety concerns for people there. But I will say that I definitely did try to pursue the Peterson human trafficking case while I was in Haiti. I spent time in Caracol. I visited the school in Caracol, which again has been run by a nonprofit organization based out of the US. The school has been providing tuition-free education to kids in the community for the last couple of years, mostly elementary and middle school age kids. So again, when I was there, I was mostly just trying to help out that school with like their fundraising and tax work. Because I didn't mention this, but in my own life, in addition to being an independent journalist, I also work as an accountant for my day-to-day job. So hence my involvement in that part of things. But I will say, again, that I did pursue
you don't have to give us like a direct source, but you must have cultivated sources. You can be very general. And what did they tell you about Monica Peterson?
In terms of her specifically, I didn't get any direct feedback about her specifically, but there were certain things that I still did learn. When I was there, I talked to some people who were very closely associated with the Caracol Park, and they did confirm to me that they themselves had heard reports that women workers at the plant had been pressured into sleeping with bosses to get jobs there, which completely corroborates what I had read in the media. So I did get some corroboration from people on the ground there that those kind of abuses were going on in terms of sexual harassment complaints against individual managers at the plant. But in terms of, a broader human trafficking ring, I didn't get direct feedback about that, but I will go far as to say that, I did, without mentioning any names, I did communicate with some journalists on the ground there to try to pursue more leads. And honestly, I am hoping to follow up more on that as the story hopefully progresses. For people who have been following the news out of Haiti, as sad as it is, especially over the last few years, Haiti has just been overwhelmed with gang violence, in particular in the capital. So that was really the overwhelming issue that I really heard from people, was just, the lack of a functioning government combined with just the out of control gang violence. And Haiti, unfortunately, has really kind of been drowning in that over the last couple of years. And, I did hear plenty about that when I was there, for sure.
So you've put all this research into Monica Peterson. What made you, what was the drive? Did you just want to understand what happened to her?
Yeah, very much so, very much so. And to kind of explain, what my drive and motivation was, as I was saying before, I've been writing and researching these articles for the better part of about 6 or 7 years now. And, I've always had a passion and involvement in social justice issues going back a while. I do currently work as an accountant, but I have previous experience, long experience in the environmental justice movement, as well as the labor activist movement. I used to work as a union organizer in different parts of the country. So social justice issues in general have always been, really important to my life and my work. And, roughly around like 2016, 2017, I started to get much more involved in researching human trafficking and child sex trafficking. And not going to lie to you, Nick, I have a lot to thank you in particular for that, because when I read your book about the Franklin scandal and your other book, the DC Madam book, those books were so mind-blowing to me when that was really the first time I realized, how bad an issue child trafficking truly is, and to what extent this kind of corruption really does go into the highest levels of power. So, your books and your journalism played a big role in encouraging me to, really try to investigate these issues more. And as I learned more about these issues, and as I said as I researched these issues more, I started to find more and more connections between these kind of human trafficking allegations in the nation of Haiti, which led me more and more into the direction of, obviously researching human trafficking crimes in Haiti, which is, of course, what led me to the Monica Peterson case. And what one of the things that's so incredible is so obviously, a key, some of the primary evidence in the Peterson case clearly is this whole series of Facebook communications. I just wanted to put these few Facebook communications together into a coherent story that really shows what was going on with Peterson in the time before her death to the best extent possible. I mean, that was really my biggest motivation there with that.
And we don't even know what her suicide note said. The Washington Post said that there was a suicide note, but we don't know what the suicide note said.
We don't. And that's unfortunately another part of this that I haven't been able to follow up on. Not to get into all the details, but I have had some communication with some members of Peterson's family, and they didn't even know what the note contained. And unfortunately, I don't, about when it comes to the particular circumstances of her death, unfortunately, I really don't know any more than what the media has already put out there. All we really know is that she died in Port-au-Prince in November of 2016, allegedly by suicide, but we don't know where she was when she physically died or any more of the details other than that. So, which again, obviously, adds to the suspiciousness of this even more so.
So you've got a very idealistic person who has completed a master's program in human trafficking, who went to Haiti in 2015 to look into trafficking and concluded that there was trafficking. And then she went back in 2016. And then she mysteriously commits suicide. And the Washington Post then does a hatchet job on her. The Washington Post links her to Pizzagate. Now, here's someone who's very dedicated to anti-trafficking. She's got a master's degree in it. And she is very progressive, not right-winged at all, like the QAnon people, but yet the Washington Post has to play essentially the Pizzagate QAnon card with her to completely discredit her.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, all you have to do again is read through Glenn Kessler's article, and you clearly can see that he just uses the QAnon Pizzagate tropes to basically associate those things with Monica Peterson as a means of discrediting her. And it's so obvious that he's doing that in the article. It's almost not funny, because I'm going to give you a particular example. Excuse me, if you just give me a second here. So obviously, as we were just saying, the biggest key claim that Peterson made before she died was, again, that human trafficking was happening to some unknown extent at this particular industrial park, the Caracol Park in Haiti. So, you would think that the Washington Post would do their due diligence and cover that allegation. Well, as it turns out, they did cover it, but the way in which they covered the Caracol allegation, they present the facts in the context of a lie, for lack of better terms. But so again, I'm going to quote directly from Kessler's article where he mentions this particular allegation about human trafficking in the Caracol factory. So again, quoting directly from Glenn Kessler's article. On December 4th, 2016, the InfoWars website, run by Alex Jones, big booster of President-elect Donald Trump, posted a YouTube video titled Haiti Pizzagate, Death of Child Trafficking Investigator. It falsely claimed Peterson had just begun investigating the correlation regarding the Clinton Foundation's Caracol Industrial Park complex and its connection to a human trafficking network when her life was cut short, end of quote. So here's what's significant about this nasty little quote here. So in fairness to Kessler, he does mention the Caracol factory, but he only mentions it in the context of a lie instead of saying the truth. And the truth is that, again, there's this Facebook post that is very plausibly by Monica Peterson, where she makes the claim specifically that human trafficking was happening at this complex. Instead of just saying that, which is the objective truth, he claims that, oh, it wasn't Peterson who made that claim. It was actually Alex Jones claiming that Monica Peterson made that claim. So what Glenn Kessler appears to be doing, in my mind, is he's basically pulling a trick. he's pulling a misdirection trick. Instead of being honest about who wrote the Facebook post, i.e. Monica Peterson, he unnecessarily and out of nowhere brings up none other than crazy old Alex Jones. So, you know, for your average typical Washington Post reader who might stumble across this article, you know, the only context they're going to get about the Caracol human trafficking allegation is just a lie. They're going to read the allegation coming out of Alex Jones' mouth, and in all likelihood, you're going to dismiss the allegation because in Kessler's article, you read the Caracol allegation coming out of Alex Jones' mouth right next to the words Pizzagate, Donald Trump, InfoWars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in my opinion, I think this is a pretty obvious example of Kessler trying to use Alex Jones, you know, the obvious punching bag of the conspiracy world, as a means of dismissing the credibility of the Caracol human trafficking allegation. And it really, and again, when you read through this, it really is just so blatant what he's doing. Very blatant, in my opinion.
And also dismiss the significance of Monica Peterson.
Absolutely, because I mean, as I said, he does, in fairness, he does acknowledge that she was working as a researcher for this graduate program, but at the same time, you know, he only mentions it by quoting her boss. He doesn't give any more context about what this program was, because, I mean, again, this program was in operation for the better part of 20 years. And as far as I know, it was one of the few graduate programs in the country that focuses specifically on combating human trafficking. Again, the name of the graduate program was literally the Human Trafficking Center.
Steve, I really want to thank you for coming on the Nick Bryant podcast. And I also want to thank you for pursuing with such diligence the life and death of Monica Peterson.